What is up, everybody? We are here today looking at a Decidueye Vileplume deck list updated for Guardians Rising. Now, for the most part, it looks the same. We have the same lines on Decidueye and Vileplume, and we also have lots of Shaman, but we've also made a couple changes around the corners to update it for Guardians Rising. So, the first thing you may notice if you've been following this deck a lot is we currently run two Tapalele GX. And Tapalele, of course, has been a really influential card, helpful for consistency, really powerful, so it makes a perfect addition to the deck. Now, there's been some debate about whether or not you want to run Lugia with it. I've been on the fence on that. I've been running it with Lugia, I've been running it without, but for today's demonstration, I'm running it without Lugia, and that's to have a little bit more consistency to show off just what the deck can do right now. Now, you may notice from recent tournament showings at Seattle and at Madison that evolution decks have been picking up steam lately, and that includes Garbodor, that includes Vespiquen, that includes Metagross and Zoroark, and so all of these evolution decks have been really powerful and influential, and so I figured let's go ahead and add in an Espeon EX, and its Attack Miraculous Shine lets you devolve all of your opponent's top evolved Pokemon, bring them back to your hand, which makes a perfect combination with our star of the deck, Decidueye GX, which, as you may already know, is centralized entirely around the Feather Arrow ability. And that's the idea we're aiming for, is against those decks in particular, we are trying to, if not overpower them outright, set up little bits of damage throughout the whole game, and then just take it all down with the Miraculous Shine. Okay, so one of our big problems that we had before Guardians Rising was Garbodor, and Garbodor's Garbotoxin shuts off all abilities as long as Garbodor has a tool attached to it. Well, thanks to Field Blower, that's no longer the case because you can discard the tool right away, and to add insult to injury, we can get that back with Decidueye GX's GX attack, Hollow Hunt GX. Meaning that if we really have to, we can either discard that Field Blower at the beginning of the game, get it back when they have ability lock, and then discard it subsequently. Alright, now most of this should look pretty similar for the most part. Again, if you've been following the deck, which I'm assuming everybody watching this video has, but we've got one noticeable absence, and that's no Trainer's Mail. Now, I've got a good reason behind that. Actually, I've got two. The first one is we've got a lot of consistency already, so we have shifted the consistency card counts around a lot to the point where what we have is more reliable. Okay, so we have 3 Shaman EX, that's always an out to a dead hand at the beginning of the game. Same with Tapalele GX, that's 5. And we have max counts on N and Professor Sycamore. I'll go ahead and explain that a little bit more later. But that, combined with the Ultra Balls, leads to having 17 hard outs to a bad hand, which is really, really consistent compared to most other decks in the format. Now, one thing we have that's kind of a soft out and is a really neat addition after Guardians Rising is Mallow, which lets you essentially rig legally the top 2 cards of your deck for your supporter for the turn. And so the combo here is pretty evident if you know the deck, which is to sometimes get a Force of Giant Plants, lets you evolve all your grass Pokemon if you've been having trouble getting it. That way you don't have to dig with it furiously with Trainer's Mail, looking for stadiums or whatever you can get. Essentially what we're doing is we're relying a little bit less on luck, we're relying a little bit less on explosive starts, and something that can get us through the whole game. Now, one interesting thing we have here that you probably haven't seen in most lists is maxed out N. Now, I do that for one major reason, and that's because at this point in the list, we could theoretically fit 1 or 2 Trainer's Mail. Well, the idea behind running Trainer's Mail is that you're going to try to speed up whatever you have going. But in this case, 1 or 2 Trainer's Mail really wouldn't cut it for a deck that revolves around getting 2 Stage 2 Pokemon in play, so I decided that space would be better invested in an N. And then the last strange thing that we have here that might not be too well understood is 1 Olympia. Now, some people have been considering this a possible inclusion for a while in Decidueye, especially to help out against the mirror match before Guardians Rising. I never played it until now, and that's specifically because a 1-of is unreliable without Tapu Lele GX, but now that we have Wonder Tag in the format, it's very, very consistent, and so you're probably not going to whiff on it if you really need it. Alright, let's go ahead and play some games. Okay, we have a dark deck. I'm assuming this is going to be Zoroark Drampa GX, which is doing really well in Madison as of tonight. One to flip. First, and okay. So I'm going to go ahead and start one of these Shamans, leave one in the hand, obviously, so that I can potentially draw some cards if I really need to, but let's see what my top deck is. Okay, so not too much good right here. It's a little too early in the game to start burning resources, and by the way, I've noticed that I was wrong about what deck I was playing against. It looks like it's a Turbo Darkrai, so I'm going to go ahead and just end this away. I don't want to start discarding valuable resources just yet, and this is where we're having what we talked about come into play, where it's a little less explosive. I'm going to bench that Rowlet, save the Tapu Lele in case I want to go ahead and use a Professor Sycamore. Just go ahead and pass. Now, another option that I had last turn was whether or not to just Sycamore that whole hand away. I don't think that would have been the best option for a couple reasons. The first is I would have been discarding too many cards out of my hand and too many Pokemon at the same time, where I didn't know what my prizes were. I still don't know what my prizes are, and so I don't want to rely too much on having what I need in the deck at the right time. But now my Pokemon are a little bit better. I don't have to discard so much stuff right away. And now we can get a little bit aggressive here because it looks like he's got a bad hand. Right? So not too bad. We'll go ahead and level ball. And there are a couple options here that people could go for. You could either start building that Vileplume line, but what is the better play in my opinion right now is to go for the Dartrix to set up our Decidueye. That's because in the long run it's going to help us get that Vileplume, because we're going to be drawing more cards with Shaman EX as opposed to just getting an Oddish. And the other point behind that, which is perhaps the better option, is that we have something that's an immediate threat on the board. So even if we get unlucky, even if we don't get what we need, we still have lots of options here. So very important, don't ever forget your feather arrows if you can use them. Unless you have some sort of pressing reason not to use it, you should always use a feather arrow every single turn of the game. Let's see. I could go ahead and Ultra Ball and try to dig a little bit more. But instead what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass again. And that seems a little risky, but I think that's the best play overall because I don't want to start burning resources, drawing too many cards for no good reason, only to probably live on what I need anyways. So Shaman EX is knocked out, and now we're getting aggressive. Let's get dangerous. So let's see what we've got right here. So I can't pull off my Mallow Tapu Lele combo right now. But that might come into play later in the game, though. So get an Oddish. Go ahead and get a Rowlet. And this is all going to the long-term plan we have here, which is to set up the whole rest of our board so that eventually we'll be able to start mounting what seems to be a comeback but was never really too much of an issue in the first place. So we'll go ahead and Feather Arrow again. Even though this is a pretty attractive idea to Feather Arrow one of those, I'm going to hold off on that because right now the Darkrai is our threat. There are a couple things I could have done here. I could have wasted this level ball and then Shaman for one, maybe hoping that I hit it exactly what I needed, like a Force of Giant Plants, but I figured that that's not a good idea. It's the same idea as before, which is don't gamble if you don't have to. And right now I'm in a commanding position. I'm really good even though I'm behind 3 prizes. That's one of the neat things about this deck is that you can theoretically fall really, really far behind, but you can still win. Alright, that's the top deck that we needed. Go ahead and evolve that Decidueye up. Now, one thing I'm making a mistake of right now is I'm not being very conscious about what cards are in my prizes. And if some of you have seen me on stream playing this deck before, the official Pokemon stream, not anything that Hey Trainer's done, you'll notice that I've taken really excessive, potentially excessive notes. And the idea behind that is I want to be able to make the absolute best plays that I can with the deck at all times. Now, since this is just kind of a casual demonstrative stream just showing off what the deck can do and how things work, I'm not quite 100% as focused on things like taking notes. But all the same, I think that this should be able to give you a good idea of how the deck runs, and most importantly show that Decidueye is still a top tier contender. Alright, so let's go ahead and put a little bit of damage on the Darkrai. Put a little bit of damage on the Yveltal. Now you'll notice one thing, I Sycamored that turn instead of Shamaning. I don't want to go ahead and give him another Shaman to target later in the game unless I have to. And also my second Revitalizer is prized, and on top of that, my second Oddish is prized, so I'm not going to push it too much. Instead, I'm just going to go ahead and take it a little slow. Just don't rock the boat too much. And there's a Revitalizer. So I have a couple options that I could do, and both of them are good in their own ways, but I could bring up this Decidueye after he promotes his Yveltal with the energy, or I could bring up the Decidueye with no energy, or I could bring up one of these naughty X's. I'm going to choose to bring up the Decidueye with no energy over either of these other options. That's because I don't want to expose myself to Team Flare Grunt and Enhanced Hammer with the Decidueye with energy. I want to be able to attack at a moment's notice. And I also don't want to bring these guys up because I don't want to give him easy prize targets, because right now he's on an odd prize exchange. And the thing about GXs is you draw 2 prizes off of them. Ideally, you want to force your opponent into a situation where they're drawing a lot of prizes they don't want to do. This is what people call the 7th prize, when you put your opponent in a position where they have to draw extra prizes that they wouldn't need to otherwise. And that's not anything technical, that's not a real thing that people are doing, but all the same, that shows you that... Okay, just a sec. Pardon the interruption here. Commentating, but I also want to go ahead and make sure that I keep things at a decent pace. So we're going to go ahead and Revitalizer for 2/3 of the Vileplume line. We're going to go ahead and Ultra Ball to complete the Vileplume line. I'm going to go ahead and discard a Lysander and a Shaman. And this is a little risky, but I think those are the 2 best discards to go for right now so that I can set up my Vileplume completely. Okay, and I made a misplay with that. This is one thing that's really important you always have to keep in mind, is that you can't just assume that your Force of Giant Plants is in play at all times. I mean, I'll go ahead and admit I've made that mistake a couple times where I thought a Forest of Giant Plants was in play. It wasn't. And then I came awful close to accidentally trying to level up things that I couldn't evolve. But all the same, we're still in a really good spot. This is Darkrai, and now his hand's finally actually gotten a little bit better. So what we're going to see here is he is going to draw half of his deck. He's been getting all these dead draws for the whole game, so it's about time that he explodes and causes a ruckus with everything that he can get here. At least before he can't play items anymore. Alright, so that's a pretty big amount of damage dealt there. Huh. It seems we haven't gotten Decidueye, or it seems we haven't gotten Vileplume out all game. But that is perfectly fine because we can go ahead and take this very, very aggressively. We'll go ahead and put a couple damage counters on the Yveltal. It's kind of a wash on whether to go for the Yveltal or to go for the Oranguru. But I'm going to go ahead and put them on the Yveltal. And I'm going to wait to use Hollow Hunt GX unless I absolutely have to. You see another Sycamore out of the real McCoy. We also have a pretty good play here going on because what he's trying to do now is set up the Oranguru for a last-ditch effort attack if he absolutely has to. But we've got that Yveltal up to 60. Let's take a look at his discard. It helps to always remember all the different cards in the format. There is a very good chance that he could potentially get Hexmaniac on us. That would not be good. Go ahead and set up potentially another Decidueye, but more likely than that, what we're aiming to do is we're aiming to get a Dartrix knockout for the win potentially. So I am figuring out my odds of a Max Elixir Oranguru knockout here. There's a pretty good chance that he'd be able to knock me out with the bench Darkrai. So we're going to go ahead and retreat. And Razor Leaf. Alright, both really good prizes to get. Even if I get End the 1, both of those are really good cards to have. Well, not the Ultra Ball so much as the Sycamore, because you have the Sycamore circulating in your deck. That means that you have one less bad card that you could draw top deck and then eventually win. So, alright, good play here. Good play to Pokemon Center Lady, but unfortunately he has used up his supporter, meaning that I should be able to pull this out just a little bit. Alright, very well played by my opponent despite his pretty mediocre hand. Go ahead and evolve that Gloom. We had shuffled back Tapu Lele earlier. Let's go ahead and make sure we have everything here. Now, this is one of the most important things, is that you want to make sure that you don't screw something up on accident. And I've got a pretty good position here. He has, let's see what we have. We have, I mean, there's a slight chance that he could pull this out and win the game. Don't forget that. Don't count anybody out. But that said, he's at a point where there really isn't that much he can do. The only thing he can hope for is to tap a Lele into a Lysander or to have a Lysander already in his hand. So we'll go ahead and evolve. And evolve again. Do a couple feather arrows. Both of those feather arrows probably weren't that good. It probably would have been a better choice to put them onto the Rangaroo on the bench. So we've got the delay, question of whether or not he has game, and it does not look like he does. So he's going to Sycamore that away. Try to get something going, try to get out of this somehow, but all right, and with no cards left in our deck, no way to get out of this. It looks like we lose. Oh, wait! No, we've got one way to get this. And it's like we were talking about earlier, not necessarily setting up a Decidueye, but set up a Dartrix for the win. So here we go. A pretty imperfect game on my part, but overall a good display of how the deck works and that it can still win and do really well. Okay, let's go ahead and queue up another game. 10 coins. I'm doing pretty well on getting up to my Lysander. My locked Lysander, but it's a free card, so I'm not complaining. Actually, I'm kind of excited about it. Because I already got one, and I need another one. Looks like nobody wants to play us today. Not even random people. Okay, I spoke too soon. It looks like we got a water deck, and I'm maybe thinking this is a Greninja deck, but who knows? People like to play lots of mind games on PTCGO with all the different little things they use. Their sleeves, their coins, their deck boxes. But more often than that, people are just wanting to do something to compartmentalize all that stuff for their own sake. And when I'm trying to organize stuff, I'm not worried about some random person on random VS matches knowing what I'm playing. I'm more concerned about having things easy to identify for me. So, no Talonflame start. We already know from the preview that he is in fact running a colorless Pokemon. I'm assuming Talonflame. So we got a couple different things we could do here. We could start digging, or we could work to set up a Dartrix for the next turn. I don't like that so much, and that is because we're still at a pretty good point where we can start getting what we need, getting set up. The hopes for a turn 1 win are really kind of shot now, but that's okay. I mean, this theoretically is a pretty good matchup, assuming they don't lock a Vileplume and deal a whole bunch of damage to the benched Pokemon with Giant Water Shuriken. So we'll go ahead and bench a Rowlet, grab another Rowlet, and okay. So I started with 2 Dartrix. I was a little worried. I thought that I had 3 Dartrix prize, but nope, it looks like I'm A-okay for now on that front. Still lots of consistency cards left. Not a whole lot of grass energy thanks to discarding that first one and then attaching the second. So we're going to bench 2 Rowlet, 1 with the level ball. Evolve hopefully on the next turn and save the other level ball to see what we draw into. I could have potentially gotten another one, but I think it's a better play to wait on it, because we might top deck a Gloom, we might top deck a Dartrix, we might top deck a Revitalizer. We don't know yet, and so let's just go ahead and wait and see what we get. Okay, not bad. So I'll go ahead and evolve my Dartrix, and now we go back to our question from earlier, what to get. And right now, I have more outs to Dartrix than I do to Gloom, because I have a Dartrix in the discard pile. So we're just going to go ahead and get that level ball for a Gloom. I might want to use this Shaman to start digging through the rest of my deck to evolve everything soon. So what we are going to do is we are not going to play this Tapu Lele. Instead, we're going to hold on to it and end. And that worked out for the most part beautifully. There are a couple problems here. We'll go ahead and play the Force of Giant Plants, evolve. And see, here's the issue. I could and I will get Revitalizer to get back the Vileplume and the Dartrix, so I can get my item lock and everything. That's all well and good. The problem is, I'm going to make myself vulnerable here by not having a Floatstone on that Vileplume, because he can beat me the exact way we were talking about earlier, which is to Lysander up the Vileplume, lock me, and then Giant Water Shuriken, a bunch of easy targets. But we're going to go ahead and go with that anyways, because it's the best play right now. It could potentially lock him out of the game right now if he doesn't have a Greninja in his hand. And all in all, it's the safe thing to do. So as predicted, the Vileplume's going to get brought up. The Olympia's in the discard pile, so what we are going to do is we are going to, even though we've been Lysandered up and we've been dragged up, we're going to play this on our own terms. We are going to Sycamore and start setting up what we can as soon as we can. So we'll go ahead and drop a little bit of damage on that Frogadier. We've got 3 Frogadiers. That's good on the bench because it's going to be hard for my opponent to get multiple Greninja into play right now. Meaning that if he wants to Shadow Stitch lock me while waiting to get the Greninja break, I have multiple Lysander targets, and unless he gets a second Greninja, then there's not that much he can do about it. But right now, he's having a lot of trouble getting the first Greninja, let alone the second. Alright, so without a single attack this game, there goes a Frogadier. And up comes another Frogadier. We've got a little tricky thing here we can do. He currently has not played a Hex Maniac. They have not played a Hex Maniac, so it's if they run it, then I might be in a little bit of trouble here. But for now, though, because he benched that Froakie, he has given us an easy target. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our sweet time, and we're just going to leave that Froakie active. Okay, so played an Ace Trainer, very good. Punishing my early lead, but there's a lot that has to go right for my opponent. My opponent actually has to start getting stuff like another energy, which, in all honesty, it looks like it wouldn't be that hard to get. I mean, they drew 6 cards, I drew 3, so I'm not really too worried about it. Not too worried about it, I mean, it could happen, but... Right, there's another evolution. Alright, what we were trying to do there last turn was deal damage to the benched Frogadier to potentially set it up for a knockout, but that's no longer a possibility for a couple reasons. I mean, he evolved to all of his Greninjas, but on top of that, he's got a rough season play. So, meanwhile, we have 2 Force Giant plants left of our own. And now we can go ahead and get a little aggressive here. We can go ahead and discard all that and start setting up our aggressive play. So that's all of my ends gone. That's going to be a little dicey, assuming I don't find a good opportunity to hollow hunt one of those ends back. Go ahead and attach a double to the Vileplume and pass. Just gonna go ahead and stay at this for a while. Again, this is where the importance of always knowing what's in your prizes counts. That would give me a pretty good idea of my exact odds here, but I've got a good approximation that I can wait on hitting one of my energy in the deck so that I can knock out his Greninja. I bet he is really happy. Finally be out of the active position. Finally to get that thing out. But let's go ahead and take a look. Two water in the discard, 1 in the hand. I can do a couple things here. I can let this Vileplume die. I can try my Lysander lock some more. I can try to dig for that last energy. I'm going to lose too many resources if I dig too much, so I am going to just go ahead and force him to knock out the Vileplume. And there it is. There's the knockout on the Vileplume. Got a couple of things here I can do. I obviously should have feathered arrowed a couple times because even with rough seas, I would have had 1 more damage counter on the board otherwise. But that's okay. I'm not particularly worried here. Although, probably the #1 danger in this matchup is just getting overconfident about your chances, because now he's got a whole bunch of items that he can use right now. Could potentially bite me in the butt, but all the same, right now, we can go ahead and Ultra Ball. Wait, those Espeon could potentially be helpful, but not quite enough to justified. We got the Force Giant plants floating around. We're going to go a little risky here because we really want that Vileplume. We really want that Vileplume. We only have 1/4 of a chance of getting it because it's floating around there in the deck. 1 out of 8. And we got it. Always good. Helps us out for multiple reasons. In addition to getting out the Vileplume, we get the rough seas out, meaning that we can kill that Froakie and get a little bit closer to winning the game. And let's go ahead and razor knock that thing out. Get it out of here. Get it out of here. There's a second Lysander. I'm not sure if aggressive Moonlight Slashing would really be the #1 approach here. When you've got all these Decidueye, all these things that are ready to kill you. I just don't really know, but that's okay. Not my problem. I was thinking about attaching this double to the Vileplume, but I think it would instead be a better idea to just save it. Save that double for later, in case I need to attach it to one of these guys. Alright. There goes the Vileplume, and now we're relatively spent on Vileplume resources. And we're going to go straight into aggressive triple Decidueye. Yeah, that means he's going to get lots of items. Yeah, that means that I'm not going to have quite as much control over the board. But at this point, I don't care. I've got lots of outs. And the only things that could really get me, like an enhanced hammer, a second enhanced hammer, and an N, won't be that devastating, because then I can just recover everything with Hollow Hunt. Got no damage on these Shamans, so no immediately easy prizes. Expect the explosion and everything to get healed, like with that max potion, and for him to break evolve. Basically expect the woodworks to come out. Basically expect him to get anything that he could possibly get in his deck right now. All these plays right here are desperation moves. If he gets second enhanced hammer, that'll be pretty bad for me, because I need to hit that float stone, and if I don't hit that float stone, then I might not be attacking next turn. That makes a difference between an easy win or potentially losing a matchup that I normally should win. And as you've seen, Lysandering of Vileplume can really be helpful, and it's about the only way that Greninja wins this matchup. So there's a giant water shuriken, and the shadow stitching as predicted. Got a couple things we can do. We can go ahead and drop that float stone or drop the double to retreat. We're going to go ahead and drop the float stone. So we have that in case we want to retreat, but also in case we want to attach it to the Decidueye in the active in case a Flare Grunt hits me or in case an Enhanced Hammer hits me. I could get hit with both, but that's okay, because at that point I can just go ahead and Hollow Hunt. Here we go. Last second desperation play on Greninja's part to try to survive. Always smart to play everything out, even in a practice game like this, to see if you can set yourself up for the best possible chance to win. But too little, too late. So we are just going to go ahead and retreat. And that's a concession. Alright. Hope that was a good demonstration of what Decidueye can do. Thanks a lot, and have a nice day.